back in and have another great conversation with my friend Ken Roberts here. Ken, how you doing?
I'm good, Josh. How you doing?
Very good, very good. I was loving the dialogue we were having about what you're doing with this new season in life. And we were talking about just the value of community and how for Christians, they're part of a church, they're part of a community, if you will. The whole kids song you learn was like, here's the church, here's the steeple, open it up, where's all the people, kind of thing. That we feel like being a part of a community on Sunday is the relationship that's going to help us and fuel us as we're walking with Jesus. And we all know that intellectually, I think. But sometimes it can be hard to feel connected. It can be hard to feel like it's an actual community that's with you as opposed to just a membership that you have and you're joining some club that you don't really know people and they don't know you. And so in that context of the modern church and people's experience of church and what that's like, how do you begin to have this conversation about formation with people that feel like, maybe I should just be getting this in the church, but I'm not getting it in the church? And how is this different than the church? And what does that all look like?
Well, big question, and I'm looking forward to jumping into it with you, today. For a starter, just so I can be clear, my own conscience, I love the church. My dad was a pastor for many years. I grew up in the church. Very good context for me, very good experience. I pastored for 38 years. Today I belong to a church. Just had lunch with my pastor, 2 weeks ago. My wife and I are involved regularly. We lead a Bible study or a gathering group. We call it a gathering house at least once a month. So yeah. I just want people to know that I work with a lot of churches. I coach a lot of pastors, that I really am a church guy. So anything that I say won't be a shot from a wrong heart, but it'll be honest observation. In our conversation, I know that your heart is in the same way. There's some big things and then some, more nuanced things that you and I both can go down, I think, both tracks. And just in general, I think where I would start with the whole thing about formation, spiritual formation, being an apprentice with Jesus, becoming more Christ-like, however you want to frame that, it's a different way. I think we have to start by re-looking at the church. I don't think we can just move chairs around on the Titanic and think we're doing much. I think we have to really relook at the church. I'll give you a quick illustration. I used to go into D.C. quite a bit. I was helping a church there for about 8-9 months, and I was going in every other week. And I would either drive in or fly in. And when I was there, they were redoing the U.S. Capitol building. They were refurbishing it on the outside. Yeah. So they had all the scaffolding around it, and they had all the mesh, so it wouldn't fall on people. But here's the point. If you didn't know it was the U.S. Capitol building when you went by it, you wouldn't know it was the U.S. Capitol building. And I would propose that that's happened a lot now over time of what the church is. That we put so many other expectations and layers on it that you don't really at the core know what it is, So I think we have to rethink about really what it is. A definition I've used, and it's not the perfect definition, but if you were going to deconstruct, and I use that word in the proper way. Sometimes you have to tear the scaffolding down to look at the building again. What does this become? And I think if you're going to deconstruct and you would want to go back to the core or to the seed of the church and go back to Jesus, a way to think about the church is a band of disciples. That's what he called. Yeah. On journey together. Mm-hmm. So there is the community aspect with Jesus in the center.
Yeah.
So if you just started blowing everything else away about our political stance or about what we do with kids or teens or justice all those can be helpful and are part of the mission of the church, I think, but they're not the core. I think we've moved away from the core. So I think we have to start there.
And when you say re-look at the church, you're really saying, hey, there's maybe a course correction on what we're focusing on. That's a part of the scaffolding. Like, hey,
Absolutely.
Maybe the scaffolding that's there, maybe we had a good intention to begin with, but it's not really needed, and we got to get to what's underneath.
Yeah, I say, and I've said this for now probably 15, 20 years, maybe even longer. I wrote some stuff on it, so it's in print and I can't take it back now. But I think that I think the church is in a season of reformation.
Mm.
And that's a big word. I think it's been there for a long time. I think we are in between waves. So we think about renewal, and renewal as I renew my membership at the gym. So there is an ante-up that we need to do. We need to recommit at times, renew ourselves to the gospel, renew ourselves to. So there are seasons of renewal in the church, which I think are phenomenal, or they're needed.
Yeah.
There's revival, and revival is resurrecting what's dead or almost dead. But then there's reformation, and those are different. And sometimes we throw them all together. We throw them all together. And I think we're in a season of reformation where things are actually needing to be reformed. Mm-hmm. Now, they can only be reformed by the work of the Spirit. So revival is a part of it. But many times, and I'm not being sarcastic here, we think about revival, and if we can just get a little bit more juice going, and keep what we've got. But I would submit we don't need to revive what currently is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think there's a reform. Yeah. So this is a big conversation, but we can't get to formation conversations without really thinking about what is at the core of what it really means to be the ecclesia.
I think that resonates with a lot. I think there's probably a lot of people even watching this that are like, yes, that absolutely is not just what is needed, but it's what a lot of our hearts are groaning for, that sort of reformation, because I think that there's a sense that something is off. And actually, I was talking to a friend this morning who's prepping to defend his dissertation for his doctoral thesis. And so he's in seminary and he's prepping. I mean, he's going to be defending his thesis in the next month. So he's at the last stage, and his entire dissertation is on Wesley and what John Wesley did, and that the roots of a lot of the charismatic movement and the Pentecostal movement show their roots back to what Wesley built. Yep. And Wesley never left the Anglican Church. Wesley died seeing himself as an Anglican minister. But what he was reforming and what he was saying is a method, and that's where Methodism came after he died, was about how do we get back to the relationship? How do we get back to small community of people living with a focus of holiness, but a focus of holiness in the context of people that I'm walking with that can hold me accountable, that I'm actually fully transparent with. This is not like I'm a part of a movement or an organization. This is about this very small group of people that can look at you and walk with you and say, hey, what about this? How is it going in your life? What has God done in you lately? And when I was hearing him talk about this, it was just like, that's what we need again. That's the reforming that needs to take place again. And Wesley was only saying that he was just pointing at the Acts church. He wasn't really doing anything new. He was just like, we got to get back to the roots, back to what's under the scaffolding.
Yep. Yeah, I believe that. And I believe there's a big, big desire for it. I think the other thing that we have to think about, which is, again, on a macro level, we talked about kind of redefining the church, but I think we have to rethink the gospel. That's another pretty big thought. And what I mean by that is, again, this all goes to formation, so we're not off track by our conversation here, is that we've often thought of the gospel mainly as forgiveness of sins. That's how it's presented. And that is true, obviously, but it's only one side of the coin. And so what happens is we've left out the other side of the gospel, which is actually union with Jesus. The atonement is the open door for union. And therefore, when we begin to understand the gospel as union, that connects us to the relational dynamic of the life that's already in us and learning how to live out of that, which then naturally leads us to spiritual formation, becoming more like Christ. But if we stop on the one side of the coin, forgiveness only, and again, Dallas Willard then famously started calling it the gospel of sin management, meaning we were forgiven, and then we try really hard not to sin. We sin anyhow.
Right.
We're forgiven. Yeah. See, that's what has produced in much of the Protestant evangelical church is the gospel of forgiveness only, which is then people just trying to live out of not mess up till they get to heaven. And if we presented and understood and experienced the totality, the completeness of the gospel, which is forgiveness, but is also now a life in union, the life in union would lead us to spiritual formation and would also lead us to what's spiritual community all about.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because spiritual community ultimately, I think, should be mainly about helping one another, become more like Christ and live that in the world. We should be little outposts of the kingdom in the world now, showing some type of expression of the kingdom. But that can only happen if two things happen. We have to be living the life of the kingdom individually, growing in the likeness of Christ. So we're not Christians by nature, by name only, but also by nature. But we have to be with a group of people that's expressing that. Those two things together make an outpost of the kingdom in the world in which we live. And if we don't back up and look at those macro areas and get them realigned, everything else is secondary, and I think we'll fall short.
God, there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah. Well, you can see how these two macro thoughts are major. And I think we just have to relook at, we have to take some of the scaffolding down and actually relook at it. It may be one of the reasons. I don't think it's the only reason, because I think it's a very complicated, topic that we've seen so many, either leave the faith, which is a whole different conversation, or at least have left much of the current expressions of the church today.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different reasons in there. So there's not one simple answer, but I do think that one of them could be because people are not experiencing the depth of the abundant life that Jesus said he came to give. And therefore they're not finding it in the same wineskin that's a bit worn out. And so, again, our own motivation, it takes discipline to be involved. It takes sacrifice to be with other people. Sometimes on Sunday morning, I'd rather read my Bible and lay by myself than go, sit some other place. So there's a lot of different nuances, but I think one of them could be one of the things that we're seeing is people, there is a hunger for the depth of union, becoming, and being in the context of people they're on the journey in that way together. And we could flip it, but we could flip it real quick, but we could get way off into a lot of different things. But what the church is currently dealing with and being built around, it is, in many ways, nothing but conflict and chaos. It's almost the opposite. And again, we can get into the justice issues and the racial issues and the political issues, and that has become more defined by what the church is, where we stand on those issues than it is a band of disciples on journey together with Jesus in the center of us. An outpost of the kingdom where individually and collectively we are trying to, live a life of the kingdom and express a life of the kingdom. And we're way off path.
Well, I think what I have appreciated about what you've built in this season, in this curriculum, is a space for people to dedicate time to reconnect to some of those principles, and that you've been drawing people that have felt this sense of a gap in community where they are. But I think what I love most about what you're doing is that it's not an end unto it itself. It's like we're drawing people in to be not just inspired, but to be fueled, to be lit on fire with these core principles, and then carry those embers and those flames back to start rekindling inside of the communities that they're a part of. And so that it truly does become this sustainable action. It's not just, I'm gaining some knowledge through this curriculum, I'm meeting some interesting people that are like-minded. It is that, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, we've called form, a guided journey into becoming more like Christ. That's just kind of the way we're trying to explain it. And what we try to say is that what we hope we're providing, and I think we are providing it, is somewhat of a clear path. Where do we start? What does this look like? So that's, people are looking for that, I think. 2, we're offering an experience guide I'm not perfect, but I've been in the journey a long time, and I've been on this journey of what it looks like to become like Christ for many, many years. So just to have somebody to say, hey, what would you do here? What do you think here, etc. So people are looking for that. But then in context to this conversation, but also in a like-minded community. So we're not trying to replace the church. We say that very clear. I believe people should be involved in a defined spiritual community. We're trying to be supplemental because many times the church, whatever size, whatever expression it takes on, isn't able to give a solo focus on helping people just become more like Christ. They're pulled in lots of different directions, a lot of expectations, a lot of pressures, etc. So all we're trying to say is this is something that can help, and it doesn't replace, but maybe it can come alongside and help people who are really looking for that.
Yeah, I think I'm in digital health in my job, and behavior change is the focus of a lot of the clients that we're working with. So it's like a disease management program or weight loss. And the best course of action is to do the change with someone. It's not that you're doing it on your island alone. And that's not just in the curriculum that you're talking about, but it's also the work that needs to be done when we talk about rethinking church, when it talks about removing the scaffolding. Most of the people are part of those communities. And if they're going to help others in their community start to reevaluate that scaffolding as well, having the mindset of we're doing this together. We're not just going to be pointing at the scaffold and saying, oh, this needs to go here. It's like, no. We all have scaffolding and we're all trying to dismantle it together. And that is an approach that I think also is it's not just rooted in the fruit of the Spirit, which is truly about covering things in love, but it's also diving into the hard, difficult things because we're doing it together.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, that's my desire. That's really how this course came about. It's something I've been, thinking through, working on for 20 years. And the way I've said it in other ones is how do we in practical, integrated and incremental ways become more like Christ? So if I can help, there's two different ways probably people could respond. At the bottom of this YouTube, there should be a link they'll find. They'll actually take them right to the forum page, which they'll find more about it. What are the sessions? How do we do it? When does it start? All those type of things. And if by chance that isn't there, which it should be, then they can simply go to my website, which is kenlroberts.com, kenlroberts.com. They'll find my website there, which is A Well-Finished Life. And one of the rails of A Well-Finished Life is form. So they'll find everything they need about form and how they can get the material or go through the course or get in contact with me. It's a deep part of my life, and I hope I can help really as many people as I can to inch our way forward to becoming more like Christ.
Love it. Ken, thanks for the time as always. Always appreciate these conversations. So
I appreciate you leading them and doing them together with me. It means a lot.
Excellent. Till next time.
Okay, thanks, man.